but really welcome everyone. We have two distinguished speakers today, two mayors. You're going to be hearing presentations, a panel actually, from Mayor Colleen Marr and Mayor Adrian Mapp. So welcome. And just two reminders to turn off your cell phones and that this session is being taped and will be on the GFOA website afterward. So we are going to, after I introduce them, I want you to think of any questions you're going to have. We're going to have a Q&A. So if you can write down any questions you may have, come up to the microphone afterward. And I think it'll be good to have some interaction with the audience and with the speakers. So please, please do that. Hopefully we'll get some good questions. So beginning her career in public service as mayoral aide in Jersey City, Colleen Marr rose through the ranks to earn the post of Jersey City's Assistant Director of Housing and Economic Development. She developed in-depth analyses of budgets, budget trends, legislation, real estate and industrial capacity, and applied the resulting data toward planning, organizing, and directing economic enhancement for Jersey City. Through the intervening years, as her credentials developed, Colleen had an opportunity to apply her experience to her hometown of Fanwood, which had a deteriorating downtown in close proximity to the New Jersey Transit Station. Marr has represented Fanwood as mayor since 2004 and kickstarted the languished downtown redevelopment plans that have been discussed for decades. Her election was a referendum on downtown redevelopment, a platform to work cooperatively with local property owners in order to avoid the application of eminent domain. There's a topic. Re-elected to an unprecedented fourth term as Fanwood mayor, Colleen is one of the longest-serving women mayor in the state of New Jersey. A strong voice for her constituents, Mayor Marr led a coalition of mayors working with the Raritan Valley Rail Line to secure direct rail service to Manhattan. Working to ensure that our residents have what they need, Colleen also secured a deal with the water company to replace much of Fanwood's aging water main system, another hot topic. Bringing millions of dollars in infrastructure improvements while at the same time improving the water pressure for many residents in town. Mayor Marr has the honor to serve as the second vice president of the New Jersey League of Municipalities and chair the League's legislative committee, leads the mayor's coalition of the Raritan Valley Rail Coalition, a member of Mayors Against Illegal Guns, past president and legislative committee chair for the New Jersey Conference of Mayors, board of director of the Irish Network New Jersey, and a member of Governor's Local Government Ethics Task Force and Muhlenberg Hospital Community Advisor Group member. So enough questions there. You can ask just about her resume, but a lot of great topics there. Mayor Adrian Mapp was sworn into office as the mayor of Plainfield on January 1st, 2014. Prior to being elected as mayor, Adrian served as a councilman for the 3rd Ward in the city of Plainfield. Mayor Mapp served the residents of Plainfield on city council since 1998 and is a Union County freeholder, was one from 2005 to 2007. Since becoming mayor in 2014, Adrian has been presented with awards from the Plainfield Fire Officers Association for his service to the residents and for being a beacon of hope for New Plainfield. National Forum of Black Public Administrators for outstanding leadership, the IBPO Elks of the World for outstanding and devoted service in the community, 2015 Smart Growth Award for the Netherworld Transit Orient Development Plan, 2014 and 15 Self-Above Service Award presented by the Rotary Club of Plainfield, 2015 Community Service Award presented by the Plainfield Municipal MUA, 2015 Distinguished Service Award for Exceptional Leadership presented by the Genesis Seventh-day Adventist Church, the Gateway Regional Chamber of Commerce for 2014 Best Speaker, and the Consulate General of Ecuador in New Jersey for bringing about change to the diverse cultures in the community. Adrian holds an MBA in the international business from Fairleigh Dickinson, a BS in accounting from Rutgers, and an AA in public administration from Union County College. He's a CPA, a CMFO, and a QPA, and he's currently the Director of Finance and QPA for the City of Orange Township. So welcome our distinguished speakers.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I want to make sure is my microphone on? Okay, great. Well, thank you. And Mayor Mapp and I know each other because we actually are neighbors in Union County, and we really appreciate this opportunity to come here and talk to you, kind of frankly, about mixing politics and budgets together. Collectively, we have a lot of experience, both in local government, county government, involved with statewide issues, and then both in the public and the private sector. And sometimes I think it's okay to say that politics equals good policy, and good policy has politics involved in it. And as was described, I am a fourth-term mayor, and I am the second vice president of the League of Municipalities, which gives me a real good look at what's happening on the state level and how what's happening on the state level affects us on the county and on the local level, and all the politics that goes into those decisions that can come back to us and either make us cringe or make us smile. Many that work in government sometimes don't like politics, but however, there are some areas where they need to be closely aligned. And it actually starts with someone like ourselves, where we decide to run for office. There's an issue. My issue was eminent domain, the threat of eminent domain, and the lack of redevelopment. And that's going back now about 14, 15 years ago when that was really a hot button issue and it was actually being abused. And I knew through my work in Jersey City that there were ways that you could actually do redevelopment without seizing property that kind of maybe didn't meet the criteria. And then I got in office. But along the way, you're on a campaign trail. And you're messaging out both positive and negative messages that you, who work in the municipalities or the county, are sort of seeing from like an arm's length distance. And our goal, as we're running for office, is to connect with the voters and ultimately have them vote us in. That's why we're there. And as elected officials, sometimes we're there by a couple votes, or we're there with a mandate. And then what happens is that every politician then finds itself, newly elected official finds itself having to do something that maybe they haven't done before, which is govern. And that could be very different than what they're saying on the campaign trail. And when we govern, we need to work with yourselves and our other professionals. And breaking down sort of that basic seeds of how we get to where we're going with politics was something that I wanted to do because it can sometimes be seen as a positive and a negative. I am very lucky. I believe I have, and no offense to anyone out there, one of the best CFOs in New Jersey. He's not here today, but his name is Fred Tompkins, and you may know him from around the state. And I value my chief financial officer, my governing officer, with every core of my being, because he can help me be successful in what I want to do. And we don't always agree, but he's the one that I turn to make all of these ideas that politicians can have kind of come to reality. And sometimes we hear things we don't want to hear, and we don't necessarily like it. And then it's a balancing act. But there are promises, and there is rhetoric, and there are past sort of sins from prior administrations that all affect the budgets that come home to roost sooner or later, which is where I think politics and the budget starts to meld together and maybe put yourselves in positions that you don't like to find yourselves in. The budget is the most significant act that a mayor and a council can do in a given year. The budget is telling the taxpayers what our priorities are from their elected officials. And it is the implementation of the political process. As you know, in the private sector, budgeting is a guidance to spending. It's seen sort of as an advisory role. But in the public sector, the budget is an authorization to spend. It authorizes the spending of fixed amount of a specific purpose. In New Jersey, by law, you can't spend without having an appropriation. And I'm telling you, I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but I tell you this because it sort of helps guide those of us who get elected to office, and we have to start educating ourselves. I know as an elected official / politician that the budget's the most critical element that an elected official can deal with because it deals with taxes. And the budget hits the purse of every New Jerseyan. Other than the safety of their family and maybe their belongings, taxes is a top issue, is a priority in every town, county, and state. And we need to, as the elected officials, balance those priorities and policies. And we rely on you to do that. And we know that, as I said before, there are many budgets that have issues, and they are sometimes to be very generational. And every year you deal with new, fresh faces that come through the doors, and every year you deal with people who could be like myself that have been there for several terms. And I know that sometimes your purpose is to pull rabbits out of a hat and to have all the answers for everything that we want to do. And sometimes we don't have ears or we don't have eyes, but we just want what we want. And every great idea is that. It's a great idea, when sometimes it's actually not. There's personalities, there's politics, and all of that is sort of melded together when it comes time with the budget. And again, you play a very important role from where I sit. In my community, after being the mayor for 4 years, politics has gotten very interesting because it has allowed us to do things and create sort of a scenario in town where redevelopment became the hot priority, and then I needed to work with our officials on how to take those priorities and make it happen, and to find the money. And there's an amount of give and take that happens, and politics and budgets and communication and steering elected officials in the right direction is not an easy job, and each and every one of you play a very significant role in that. And what I see on a statewide level, with my hat on as the League of Municipalities' second vice president, is that this goes on in every single community. There's a push and the pull, and there's politics at play, and sometimes it's ugly, and it's bare knuckles, and sometimes it's just nicer, but it's still trying to move agendas along, and at times you get caught in the middle of that. But I will tell you that what you do professionally and how you communicate back to us as elected officials, you play a critical role in making the budgets happen. The mayor and I wanted to have more of a conversation, and there isn't a PowerPoint presentation today. So with that, I'm going to sort of just pivot over to the mayor, and then we'll sort of play off of each other as we go. Thank you.
And so you've heard my bio. You've heard all the letters in the alphabet. But I need to tell you that at the core of who I am has its roots and beginnings on the tiny island of Barbados. I grew up very poor, impoverished. A kid growing up on the island of Barbados without a father, being fathered by my mother and grandmother. Going to school with just a bottle of sugar water, no sandwich, and having to rely on the generosity of my classmates in order to make it through the day. And so it is that beginning, it is that which is at the core of my being that has shaped who I have become, and it sort of instilled in me certain values, wanting to do better for not just myself, but for all of the people in the city where I serve. I serve as the Director of Finance in the City of Orange, and I am the Mayor of the City of Plainfield. And we know that budgets are just financial documents containing estimates of revenues and expenditures for a specific period of time. And how we manage that budget document can determine whether or not we as elected officials sink or swim in an ocean of about 50,000 plus residents who rely on us each and every day to provide the services that they need. And how we manage that budget can determine whether or not our residents sink or swim, because sometimes they barely have their heads above the water, having to juggle their finances. And so it is important that as we look at the budget process and as we decide on the priorities that we will set for our residents, that we take into consideration the fact that we are dealing with people who are of meager means and who have to struggle hard each and every day. So controlling that budget, how we structure that, how we put it together, how we look at the services that we provide is extremely important. When I held myself out for public service, more specifically for mayor of the city of Plainfield some 4 years ago, I articulated a vision to the people of Plainfield, a vision of transformation, a vision that would create a better quality of life for all of the people who place their confidence in me to elect me as the mayor of the city of Plainfield. And so we take very seriously the task that we have been entrusted with, and that is carrying out each and every day our fiduciary responsibilities to the people that elected us. In Plainfield, we have a budget of $83 million. And we try each and every day to make sure that we spend those funds in a way that will cause us to deliver the services that we were elected to provide. And when I came into office in a city that hadn't had a CFO for 7 years. Just imagine what that looked like at the time. And so I was fortunate, and I know that these folks are in the audience, I was fortunate to have someone like Al Steinberg, who came into Plainfield as the CFO and helped us to right the ship. And then he was followed by Ricky Gartz, who is also here in the audience. And as a result of the talents of these individuals, we have been able to right the good ship Plainfield. When I took office, we had 30 audit comments, and we are now down to just one as a result of the way we manage our budget, as a result of the talent that we have. And, you know, someone needs to ask, you know, Ricky Gartz, how come there's still only one audit comment? What happened that there's one? So, but I say all of these things to say unto you that when I look at my role as a finance professional, when I look at my role as a mayor and having to juggle priorities, having to think about how are we going to rebuild our infrastructure, our roads, how are we going to deliver wholesome recreational opportunities to our residents, how are we going to deal with public safety, how are we going to transform the image of our cities. And so rebranding Plainfield has been at the forefront of my mind, because I know that if we can provide a city and we can project a safe and vibrant city to the outside world, investors will want to come into our city. And so my task as mayor is to provide leadership within my administration and to be able to reach out to people on the outside who have the capital to come into our city. And one of the ways we do that is to demonstrate that our finance house is in order. We recently, about a month or so ago, we issued over $20 million of notes, and we received a rating from Moody's, which I believe is the best rate for notes of MIG1. We have a long-term rating of A1, and we are continuing to improve our finances. When we look at the services that we provide in balancing, juggling the budget and dealing with some constituents who want everything for their particular neighborhood, we have to make some tough choices. And one of the choices I made, for example, we are very fortunate that earlier this year, we passed a bond ordinance of $5.5 million to take care of our infrastructure. And in the first few months of this year, we did 11 roads. And between now and the end of fall, we're going to do another 32 roads for a total of 44 roads that we would have repaved in our city in a matter of 1 year. And when I go around neighborhoods and I speak to people who've said to me, we've been living on the street for the last 40 or 50 years and my road, my street has never been paved. Yet I have a couple constituents who, when we talk about rebuilding the infrastructure and rebuilding a road in their neighborhood, they want us to do the road, they want us to do the curb and the sidewalks. And we have to make some tough choices. So what I have decided to do in order to get the biggest bang for our dollars out of the budget is that I have abandoned the notion of rebuilding curbs and sidewalks. And we are putting the money into the streets. And that is how we're able to pave 44 streets in just 1 year. I would rather take the wrath of 5 or 6 people on that street who want sidewalks and curbs and to get the praise, the love of people on other streets that hadn't had those streets paved in 40, 50 years. We are paving those streets. We're delivering the services. I am delivering on the promises that I've made to the people who entrusted me to become the mayor of the city. And so my financial hat, the hat that I wear when I am at my full-time job in Orange, it gives me that unique perspective, and balancing that with the job of mayor, looking at it from both sides, I know the importance of delivering a balanced budget. I know the importance of delivering services to the people who have elected us, whether we are mayors, whether we are in Trenton, thinking about the school funding formula, thinking about how we are going to repair the Transportation Trust Fund, which finally, after so many years, was finally fixed. But these are things that we have to think about each and every day, both at the state as well as at the local level. And so I am uniquely positioned as a finance professional and as a mayor to understand and to recognize the need for us to always be ever mindful of the people who have elected us and the services that we must provide in order to continue to serve in these positions of trust into which we've been placed.
As I was listening to the mayor from his perspective, and he comes from a large urban area, and I am a town that is what could be considered a small suburban area. But I think the challenges of delivering the services with taxes being a priority is the same. And with you and the value that you bring, I would hope that you're able to communicate with your elected officials. I hope that you do speak with them and are able to speak your mind, because I have been in positions where I have seen sort of those conversations get muted, and it is only a matter of time before there's problems as a result of not having good relationships with your financial officers. I find the politics of balancing the budget, as the mayor said, and listening to the taxpayers, whether it be the Strohs, whether it be the infrastructure, whether it be fighting back against redevelopment, whether it be improving our libraries, to be a problem when we're operating under a 2% cap. And there's hard decisions that have to be made. And balancing that has been challenging for us, but we rely on your expertise to get the job done. And I think my point of coming up here today is that your role in local government, for someone like myself that has worked both in the private and the public sector, is extremely valuable. And that the politics, as I said before, can be sort of difficult to navigate, but I hope that you find a way to navigate it. I hope that you find a mentor, or that you're able to communicate, which is why conferences like this, I think, is so important. You know, yesterday you had a discussion, or whether it was earlier today, about how to communicate with elected officials. I hope that was of some value to you. I do, because we rely on you, and we can't do the job in a bubble. And the pressures that we have, we turn to you to fix them. And that's why your organization is so key. Working with the League of Municipalities, working with the counties, working with your organization, watching what's coming out of Trenton, watching what's happening in the next gubernatorial election, watching what's going to be the promises made or the priorities that's going to ultimately affect each and every one of us on the local level, and in turn the taxpayers that we represent, is going to be interesting. And your voices need to be heard because you are on the front line. They always say that the mayors are on the front line, but you're on the front line with us. And I look forward to sort of working with your new president and working with your organization to deal with statewide politics, to deal with county politics, to help us in local issues where we have challenging times ahead. Because at the end of the day, we're all working for this very same people, which are the taxpayers of the state of New Jersey. Thank you.
All right, well, we're going to open up the questions now. If you come on up to the microphone and line up and look at your neighbor and see, do they need a nudge, or are they nodding off? It might be a good time to do that as well. But please come up, line up, and ask questions. Here's your opportunity.
Thank you. Mayor, I would have to commend you for your comments. I happen to know Ricky Gartz. I think you hired one of the top 10 people in the industry, so good for me. Standing in the back if you want to embarrass him with a round of applause. Wave, Ricky. There he is. I didn't tell him I was going to do that. I'm sure that you know you're in front of, obviously, a room full of CFOs, and that's either a good thing or a bad thing. But what I'd like to know is, I know Ricky, but Mayor, I believe you said you have the best CFO in the state, Fred Tompkins. Tompkins, or how do you pronounce it?
Tompkins.
If you could, in brief, just give us some of his accomplishments or attributes that makes him, in your opinion, the best
Sure.
CFO in the state.
So I met Fred Tompkins many years ago when I worked for the city of Jersey City, and he was a business administrator. So he was from Bayonne, and I was from Union County, and we met each other when I decided to run for mayor probably 15 years later. And what I see of value in Fred are a couple things. He watches what happens in Trenton. He watches the decisions that are made, whether it's a local government finance board, whether the legislations. He knows the law inside and out, and he stays very topical. He goes to seminars, he actually is a speaker, so he is able to always position us at the borough when we're looking at our budgets to make sure that we understand what's going on, just not in Fanwood, but what's happening that could have effects on us. Fred also has been involved with politics, so he has a certain perspective of understanding what may be important to me and then can help me succeed in getting there, which is why the communication of sort of understanding priorities, whether you know each other, whether you have a history or you're just starting to working with other. I would say a CFO can do a lot of good by listening and seeing what the messaging is going out in any sort of election, and then seeing how that's going to affect you in the coming year. Fred also isn't afraid to mentor people. So in our office, where we have a finance office, I find that if something happened to him, which I hope doesn't, I have actually a group of people that could step in and kind of pick up the budget and kind of talk his language and work with me on a daily basis. So I think mentoring and not being afraid to mentor is also something that I see of value. He reads a lot what goes on in our community, our local papers. He's not from my community, he's from the neighboring community, but he sort of understands what's happening, and that's able to then, because as the elected official, we're reacting to things, we're seeing what's going on. He can come to me and say, well, you know what, Colleen, we want to do a lot in the parks this year, and we've never actually applied for Green Acres. And oh, okay, that's a good idea, we can do that. Or we have an environmental issue in town, and he knows through the DEP that there's this loan application that can come. So he's able to actually just not look at a piece of paper as numbers, he participates. And because of that participation, that has helped me be successful, and which is why I look at CFOs and I know what they're capable of doing on a local level as far as the mayor, and that's why I make a point to say I think that you're one of the most important pieces of local government.
You know, and let me just add in terms of Plainfield and some of the things that we have done. I think all of you will agree that the financial integrity of any organization is the foundation upon which success is built. And if your finances are not in order, then it's going to have a deleterious effect on how you are able to run your city and govern. And so, you know, we have looked at how we could refinance debt, how we can clean up old capital ordinances. We have improved on our collection rate. We have generated in 2015 over $7.5 million in cash surplus, and last year, 2016, $9.1 million. And this is a tribute to the strength of the team that we have in place and to the strength of our CFO. And those of you who are thinking about reaching out to grab him, forget about it. He has a good thing going in the city of Plainfield, so he isn't leaving. And so I think that as mayor, I am in a unique position to look at things through the lenses of an elected official who, you know, when we look at that budget document as an estimate for a specific period of time, 1 year, and then we look at it the next year. As an elected official, as a mayor who has a 4-year term, I have to look at life as well through those lenses that, you know, cause me to do the things that I must do if I am to survive in this process of elected office. And so I want to be able to provide the best level of services to the people that have elected me. I want to make sure that we have controls in place so that property taxes are held at a certain level, there's stabilization in the tax rate, and that the quality of life for all of the people that put their trust in us is improved year after year. I want to make sure that people on the outside looking in at us, that they see us as a vibrant community, a city that is on the rise, that is enjoying a renaissance that hasn't been seen in decades. And so those of you who only know about Plainfield and who have never really experienced life in Plainfield, I invite you to come through. Come, I will give you a tour, and you will see the city that is on the rise. And so, as mayor of Plainfield, I will continue to be the strongest advocate for our city, while at the same time making sure that our finance house is in order, that there are strong controls, that the budget is balanced, is what it should be, and that we're able to provide services to our constituent. And if I can do that, if I can, you know, fix 44 roads in 1 year, you know, people come to me and they say, Mayor, I don't mind paying taxes, but I want value for the dollars that I invest in property taxes each and every year. And I think that when you can deliver on the promises that you make to people, and when you can keep a keen eye on the budget and make sure that it is at a level that doesn't push people out of their homes, I think it's important. Something that just came into my mind is the fact that number 45 just announced a new tax plan where it is proposed to eliminate the state and local tax deduction. Now just imagine the deleterious effect that will have on homeowners all across the state of New Jersey. And so those are things that we have to think about as elected officials and as finance professionals. How are we going to deal with that if it were to come down, the pike? And what does it mean for the people that we serve each and every day?
So one of the things that I will just mention is, having been in office as long as I have, I was glad to see your budgeting planning for the long term as one of your sessions, because as an elected official, what we have seen over the last several years, and when I go back and I started to say 13 years ago, we were not doing this. It was like 1 year, then the next year. Now we're in a position where we really need to have a handle on what is happening over 2, 3, 4 years from a financial point of view. When those tax abatements may be coming up, when those pilot payments may be going away, when we know that we've got notes or bonds that are coming due and our debt is going to change. I cannot tell you how critically important from our point of view towards your point of view is to work with us on that, because that is that sort of long-term planning that I see is happening more and more on the municipal level, but necessarily was not the case, years ago. We kind of just worked in a vacuum of what was going on, maybe we looked at the debt. And I think as Plainfield is rising and the mayor is doing a wonderful job leading the community there, there's the other suburban communities that need to hold on. And they need to be kept affordable for the middle class. They need to be able to keep, just as Plainfield, Fanwood has to keep the roads. There's a high expectation on services. There is a demand of shared services. There is I go door to door right now. We have an election every year. And people are very upset about their taxes. Some of them understand that we only control 20%. Some of them don't care that we only control, because they got to pay us for the whole 100%. And it becomes really where we listen and then we come back. And now I know, like I'm trying to build a new library. We think that there's a need for a library that's a former house that's in a terrible, dilapidated position. I hope each and every one of us votes yes on the referendum question that allows for library construction, because it's a 1-for-1 match. But that's something that I hope you're paying attention to and bring back to your local officials who may be struggling with, I need windows, or I need a boiler, or I need something. And that's the value that I think you bring, that if you pay attention to what's going on outside your own boundaries and this association and in Trenton, there's a value that you bring back to your elected officials that is second to none.
And let me close my remarks with this. This morning session, when the Reverend was speaking, some of you talked about your early beginnings and growing up in what we call a nuclear family with mother and father and 2 kids and a dog, and sitting around the dining room table and having dinner. Well, I didn't have a dining room table. And so I think of the many seniors who are living in our cities and who are on fixed income and who are struggling to put food on the table, to keep that roof over their heads. And so as a finance professional and as a mayor, I think that it is incumbent upon me to do the absolute best. And it is my early beginnings that have informed me and have caused me to be who I am. And so that's why I have a passion for public service, and I want to continue to be in this public arena so that I can make life better for all of the people within my city and across the state of New Jersey. And one plug for my e-newsletter that goes out every Friday. Those of you who don't receive it, it means that I don't have your email. It doesn't only go out to the residents of Plainfield, but it goes across the state of New Jersey. And I lead with an editorial every single week. And it can be helpful to many of you as finance professionals and as mayors. You will get to see the kinds of things that I think about and that I write about, and how I am the person that you see sitting up here before you this afternoon. Thank you.
I have another question.
And I would just say, for your membership here at the GFOA has a lot of value to mayors. Because what you talk about here translates what you bring back to your community. And as we look at pension issues, as we look at how to afford things in a 2% cap, you know, what you bring here and then come back home actually has value. And so, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Any other questions?
To add on to that, do you have any examples of additional services you've added or taken away, or where you see more value, either that you've had in your past experience or where you see your city going?
Well, I believe in our young people, and I believe that our youth deserve wholesome recreational opportunities. And we are currently working very hard on rebuilding and enhancing recreational spaces. And so when I came into office, there was a shortage. The quality of the recreation that our young people had was just not what it needed to be. We just constructed a state-of-the-art skate park, and we have our young people just come into that park each and every day. We're investing in an artificial multi-sport turf complex. And we are continuing to look at ways to enhance services in particular to our young people, as well as to our active older adults. And so those are just a couple of the things among many that we are doing in our city, and I'm sure Mayor Maher has some examples as well.
We're actually just trying to leverage the fact that we're on a train line, you know, and really make sure that the mom and pop stores that are there are able to stay. We're trying to balance housing needs and redevelopment needs and what a developer wants and what we don't necessarily want the developer to have in order to create a vibrant community. We are basically a single-family home community. That's probably 90% of what Fanwood is. It's 90% of single-family homes. And then we have a downtown, and we're blessed to have a train station. So I know that our future is tied to making sure we enhance around that transit opportunity there, and that we really work with the state and we understand what's out there, which is where you guys come in, because I rely on my finance people to kind of keep their ears to the ground of what's out there to help me, because I can vision and I can speak well and I can try to get people to come together, but I need to make it happen. And in order to make it happen, it takes money and it takes maybe code changes and permit changes and vision. And so for us, we know our future is tied to a vibrant downtown and kind of struggling with watching in the advent of Amazon and sort of not having brick and mortars anymore or some more home-based businesses. What's that doing to our community? What's that doing to our rateable base? And making sure that we can remain affordable and not price people out. Thank you for that question.
I had one question for the mayors. You're well-versed, both of you now, in the budget process. However, can you help us as CFOs talk to a newly elected official, someone who's just coming into office, and maybe how you have evolved in your budget process and how you now talk to the CFO versus how when you first came into office and how that's changed?
I would want to make it mandatory that any newly elected official, mayor or governing body, attends classes. And those classes are out there. It's just that they don't always take advantage of it. And I would say that through a partnership with the League of Municipalities, maybe your new president, the League of Municipalities, and your organization, to really put a focus out there, because we can give you the lists of, you know, all new mayors, and you know your own mayors, but as an organization, if there's a way to partner to really talk about the importance of really understanding the budget process, Because when you walk in and you're a first-time newly elected official and you have no experience, and that's why I talked about the difference between the public sector and the private sector budgets, they are night and day. And people think they know what they know, and then they get there and they don't know anything, and then they don't understand why they don't know anything, and they want to know why this isn't it, and why can't this accounting be this way? It takes a tremendous amount of energy and time, and I am sure it is very frustrated. But I would find those classes for those newly elected officials, and I would kind of bring them aside, and I would tell them the tremendous value that comes with sort of an education amongst their peers of other elected officials, and that no question is really a wrong question, but to put them in a room where they can sort of express that.
I would echo the same thing, because oftentimes elected officials, we come into office not understanding the budget process and believing that all of the promises that you've made to the people as you're on the campaign trail, that there's some magical way that those things can be delivered. And nothing can be further from the truth. And, for me, coming into municipal finance for the first time several years ago, I came in as a certified public accountant. And I thought that being a certified public accountant, that would cause me to know and understand everything about municipal finance. And nothing can be further from the truth. It's a totally new and different world. The concept of GAAP versus OCBOA, very different. And so even for someone like me who came into the process as an accountant, finance professional, there are things that I had to learn and learn very quickly. So for council members who don't do it on a daily basis, they're in for a rude awakening. And so they need to take the classes so that they understand better the process and get a better appreciation for what us as finance professionals, what we have to go through.
I would also just say that, the league does kind of classes, like basic classes for Introductory 101, and they do it regionally because of the state. So, there may be something, or even amongst your own peers, if you have a couple municipalities that you get together and you're kind of understanding the same frustrations, maybe you can just sort of figure out to do something internally amongst yourselves.
Okay, with that, we are at time. Please join me in thanking both of our speakers for an excellent presentation. Thank you to both Mayor and Matt.